Okay, so I have an interesting video today. My in-laws came yesterday and brought with them this box, which if you can't see, it says do not touch, box of baseball cards, Simona S. Simona S is my sister-in-law, who is 15 years younger than my wife. So she's in college now. But apparently, when she was in school, one of her teachers had given her baseball cards for, I guess, good behavior or, getting the right answers or something like that. And she apparently saved them, and now I have them. And I have opened the box to the extent of opening the top, and these were the cards that were on top. It's an interesting mix. So it seems to be sort of player focused. There were a ton of. Let me just kind of flip through these really quick. A ton of Oh, here's the Maddox that's misfiled. So there's a bunch of Tom Glavines, dupes of those, doubles of those, and then there was a bunch of A-Rods, a bunch of Maddoxes. I mean, just like from all over the place, basically. And these were just the cards, and then we had a bunch of Bondses, which is really cool, including this weird Bonds sticker, a bunch of just random Barry Bonds from this these are these late 90s, early 2000s, kind of the ultimate, I feel like the 2000s in baseball cards is like the 70s or 80s in terms of the rest of culture. It's just sort of loud, over the top, and that's what we see reflected in these cards. And then there were a bunch of Randy Johnsons. In fact, the side of the box says R. Johnson 2 on it. And then a bunch of Vladimir Guerreros. In fact, I was just watching just the other day the Baseball Card Junkie channel, which I really like. I've been, since, for the past couple months, I guess, since I've sort of reignited my interest in baseball. God, look at that. Reignited my interest in baseball card collecting. They've been a good source of entertainment. This is just the ultimate in crazy, wild, weird, wild stuff. I mean, it's... What the hell is this? This is a Pacific Revolution 2000. I thought it might have said 2000 all over the place because Guerrero hit some 2000 hits milestone or something, but that's not even, he's not even close to that apparently. Yeah, he only had 498 at this point. So apparently it's just 2000 because it's the turn of the millennium. Centurion. So there's a fascinating set of cards in this box that were just sort of floating on the top here. So I haven't touched anything on the inside, but let's do that now and see what else we find. I guess they're really densely packed in here, and they're all in pretty good condition. Try and go through these somewhat quickly so this doesn't become a 2-hour long video. I mean, they're so tightly packed in here, and the cards themselves are so plasticky and glossy that they're sticking together. Alright, so I'll just try and file these. Here's a Guerrero. These are all the same. Guerrero. Some of them are in these single sleeves. Guerrero, 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 Guerrero. Yeah, so these baseball card junkies were talking about collecting certain players, and they focused. I know one of those guys is into Bonds, and they were also talking about Guerrero as another, and it was just like just because by virtue of the fact that he played during this time period in baseball card production, his cards are so shiny. They're just so out of control wild. Okay, so an Andrew Jones. We'll start a new pile for him. All right, so here's an A-Rod, Bowman A-Rod. That's a cool card. And another A-Rod, another A-Rod. A-Rod. This is all A-Rod Rangers. I don't think I've seen an A-Rod anywhere else yet. I'd hope to get maybe some older cards in here. I don't know. I don't know what this teacher would have given away to, his, third grader or whatever age she was. A-Rod. Look at this. They're sticking together. A-Rod, A-Rod, A-Rod. I mean, this whole chunk is like one mass, which is, I don't know, kind of satisfying in some way. These apparently are all A-Rods, and I'm gonna surmise all the same card because the back of the stack matches the front of the card on the front of the stack. All right, so here's an A-Rod Rangers, here's a Bonds Pacific 2000. Yeah, so we get this kind of thing, Bonds Pacific. Bonds Pacific, A-Rod, more A-Rod. Yeah, so, I mean, you're getting the idea. I will probably take a little pause here so I can... Here's Randy Johnson from the D-backs. I'll probably stop the video, go through some of this, turn it back on to sort of give you the upshot. And maybe some of the highlights. But look at this. Jeez Louise. This is like, I don't know if this is like, would be an insert for the whatever kind of weird series this is. This is during the period of baseball card collecting where I was like, totally out of it. In college, not focused on cards so much. So to see this stuff is just totally wild. Here's a more subdued card. It just says Upper Deck Vintage. I've never seen any of these. Oh, and just to mention, there were these, in addition to that A-Rod, there was this Barry Larkin card on top, and this, it says Crown Royale on the back, and it's in the shape of a crown. It's a queen's crown. I don't really understand that, but, at least I think it is. So, I mean, you can see, R. Johnson on the box. He just had absolutely, I guess it'll sort of be a race. I'll go through one more stack here and then stop the video. Okay, so here's Pudge, a bunch of Pudges stuck together. Go through those later. This is, okay, so we've got Randy Johnson. I mean, this is a little overwhelming, quite frankly, for me. It's like I woke up out of a coma and found myself in some kind of baseball card disco. Society had devolved into only accepting the most garish, lurid, flashy baseball cards. It's like, the more shine, the better. I mean, there's something to be said for these, refractors and parallels and things like that. I don't think those are so bad, but this is like, how much gloss can we put on a baseball card? So it's a little bit jarring. Wow. Boy, Guerrero. I mean, they're without a doubt fascinating to look at. Just look at this whole stack of whatever this is, Invincible. I don't know what the hell brand this is. Some kind of, oh, this is Pacific again, I see. It's cool. It's in Spanish on the back. You know, if anybody's watching this, I'm apparently now a Vladimir Guerrero super collector. You should reach out. Happy to send you this stuff. This one has like, this is this like kind of, I don't know what it's called, like die cut thing where they cut different shapes, kind of like the Crown Royale up there. Here is a whole gigantic stack of black diamond, shiny. All right, here's the Rodriguez that matches I guess it's from the same line as this A-Rod. As you can see, I'm just totally unfamiliar with this stuff, but I'm super fascinated by it. It's like going into the future. All right, let's see. What about? Yep, the ones that are all stick together are the same dude, same guy. Banner season, Vladimir, and this must be like every Vladimir Guerrero over 4 or 5 year period. Oh, okay, so now we've got, oh, there we go, a prospect. This is awesome. Expo's top prospect. I mean, this is fun to look at because his son is so immensely talented now, and he was just inducted into the Hall of Fame, rightly so. That this is an awesome looking card. I mean, look how young he looks. Yeah, that's very cool. So let's just take a look. I mean, this is like, they've got all kinds of, I don't know, it's supposed to say shockwave, I think, but it's like they're trying to seem futuristic, like they're coding it, or it's a password, or there's some kind of like hacking or something going on. It's just like funny concepts for baseball cards. Here's a little more classic look. I really like that the back is in the sepia, and then he stands out in the full color. Let's put this back up here. All right, so I think what I'll do is just, this is where I am right now. Glavin, A-Rod. I can't even tell. Too shiny. Maddox, Bonds, tons of Guerrero, Randy Johnson. That's more Guerrero. And then we had one Andrew Jones, an Ivan Rodriguez. Some of this stuff up here, including this really beautiful, cool card. The Expos top prospect, Vladimir Guerrero. Now his son is the top prospect, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, if not the top prospect, for the Blue Jays, I believe. Okay, I'll be back once I go through a little bit more of this, see what I see. Okay, so I am on low battery, and I have a baby sleeping who's about to wake up, but I wanted to show you what ended up being in this box. These are the cards sorted by player. I'll go from sort of fewest cards to most. You had one Barry Larkin. We had a relatively small stack of Andrew Jones cards. Bigger stack of Randy Johnson, but not so big, given that the box was labeled R. Johnson. Next was A-Rod, decent size of A-Rod. Moving up, Tom Glavine. these are all really well-preserved, nice-looking cards from about the same time. Like, it was like, most of them, with some exceptions, were... So there's a Fleer Ultra from the mid-90s, I think. Oh, no, early 2000s. So it was like mid-90s through early 2000s, these cards were. And then we had a big stack of Barry Bonds, which I was pretty interested in and excited about. Next, well, actually, Ivan Rodriguez was next, although my son took a chunk off the top this morning when he went to school. So now it looks like it's less than Bonds, but it was actually more. Awesome amount of cool Greg Maddux cards, including Maddux's that went back pretty far, all the way through most of his career, really. And then third most we had Vladimir Guerrero. Second most we had Vladimir Guerrero, and first most Vladimir Guerrero. Yes, these were all three stacks are all Vladimir Guerrero cards. I have seen more Vladimir Guerrero cards than I've ever wanted to see. He is a fun and sort of exciting, dynamic player. So it was cool to have so many of his cards. I feel like I should be some kind of Vladimir Guerrero collector now. Even though, I know he's a great baseball player and all, I just have no particular affinity towards him. Maybe I'll do a separate video if there are any super collectors out there, at least of these big piles, if there are any cards that interest anyone. And then I pulled out some of the cards that I thought were just cool, nice looking cards to show you. That I just thought were more interesting. I thought this was a nice example. This Randy Johnson was a nice example of how you can do this is a Skybox card, Skybox Metal it says. I thought it was a nice example of how you can do like a refractor without losing the fact that the player you're featuring is actually playing baseball. So a lot of these refractors now would have just the image of the player, and all you can see in the background is foil and gloss and light and reflection. And here you can actually see he's on a pitcher's mound, and there's this second baseman or whoever behind him, which I thought was like a little bit of a sort of refreshing change from what some of the shinier cards are doing nowadays, which is to essentially crop the player out from any discernible earthly plane, and just put a bunch of graphics behind him. So I liked this card. This was the Vladimir Guerrero I mentioned earlier, Expos Top Prospect, sweet looking card. And then actually over here there was another Guerrero that was like an Upper Deck Top Prospects card. He's on the Albany Polecats. It looks like he's holding a bat, but he's not. I don't really get what's up with that, but it's a pretty neat card. I should caveat quite often in these videos that I have no clue how much any of these cards are worth. I don't assume any great value. I am always more interested in the look of the cards, their sort of historical significance. The player is important, but it only factors into part of my interest in the card. I like looking at beautiful baseball cards. There's this cool giant Greg Maddux, like a jumbo card. It's bigger than other cards, and it's just an old kind of weird card from the early or from the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there. There were some really cool Vlad throwback cards, Topps Heritage, that I hadn't seen before, which I thought were really nice. And along the same lines, here's this really badass Bowman Heritage card with Tom Glavine just giving like this icy cold stare. Neat portrait, neat black and white picture. If I were Glavine, I'd be really satisfied with the way this card looked and sort of portrayed me as a baseball player. Here's another one of those Fleer Ultras. I just thought this card was so weird. It's like Tom Glavine was had a really great, successful career. This is the picture you can find of him to put on your baseball card. You can't see anything. His arm is covering his face. His body is turned to the side. You just get his armpit and kind of a big white uniform. I mean, it could be anybody, basically. So I thought that was amusing. Just to comment on these, like, these cards that are cut. This is like it's like a 2/3 of a baseball card here. I put it in a sleeve because otherwise it kind of like gets lost in the rest of the stack. But this is just like, if you're paying for a baseball card, like, don't you want a full baseball card? I don't understand what in the world, why in the world you'd cut this shape and then call it center stage. I don't know what any of that means. I guess it's sort of in the shape of a beam of light. So part of it is kind of cut to reflect that, but not, not all of it. I guess that's the point. I could take a pass on this kind of card. I thought there were some numbered cards in there. I had two of these Invincible. It's called Invincible 2000. But I thought it was cool. These are cards. There's in the back. They're written on Spanish. I think this is Pacific. I don't know though, or if Invincible is another brand, frankly. But I thought it was interesting because there were two of them, and they're both numbered out of 299. One is numbered 262, and one is 131. And they're kind of neat looking cards. This is like this part here is raised up. These bats here. It's like kind of a strange image. You can't figure out exactly. They're not even bats. They're square at the top, so I'm not exactly sure what is supposed to be going on. They're like kind of, this brick wall is parting and Tom Glavine's back is appearing behind it. But there's just a lot to look at here. So neat numbered cards. If I can get the serial number a little bit better on there. I thought that was really cool. All right, so something I thought was just hysterical was this, another Glavine, which is basically looks like a kind of like a cheap Christmas card with Tom Glavine on it. So it actually says Tom Glavine Christmas card. I'm trying to, sorry for the focus issues here. Tom Glavine Christmas card. Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. There's Tom Glavine, and on the back, putting the deep freeze on his opponents, Tom pitched a complete game shutout against the Dodgers. All right, so it's just like, look, it's like a baseball card except for the fact that there's a gigantic Santa Claus that's sort of like die cut out of the back. I won't go over all of these. This was like this is like an example as compared to this Randy Johnson of, like, in my mind, how not to do a shiny, shiny, bright, crazy, wild disco card. I can see the appeal. My son really likes to look at them and sort of shine them in the light, but it's really odd in my view, because the player almost just fades completely into the background. Okay, and then he's replaced with these like sort of glowing rainbow orbs that, in my view, just mean absolutely nothing. So that's the illogic that's frustrating to me. By contrast, you have this stadium club that's like right in the middle of all this stuff, same time period. You just get them putting a really nice looking baseball card together that's almost entirely, right? It's almost entirely the player. There's no border. There's just this small line at the bottom with the name, with the name of the player. Same with this Vladimir Guerrero. It's like what a just sort of easygoing baseball card that is. I don't remember what this one is, but I just kind of like the look. Fleer 1999. Baseball greats. There were some other cool throwback cards, I thought. There's the Donruss 84, Donruss 88. A really sort of, this is the Diamond Kings, sort of haggard-looking picture of Tom Glavine there. By contrast, like you see him here looking just totally in the zone, and here looking like he's just waking up, and it's like an age progression of Tom Glavine. I'd be a little frustrated. I mean, it's a nice painting if that's actually what he looked like, but he looks like he's in some kind of physical pain. So I'm sure I didn't talk about some of these. There's this cool Latin Heat I just thought was cool. Clemente, Vlad Guerrero, Latin Heat. So, I mean, there's like a pretty good kind of range of cards from this period, and I really enjoyed looking through this box because it was like the exact time frame that I had not been collecting. So I really like felt like I was seeing something totally new and got a picture of what was happening in the baseball card industry when I was not paying attention. So I might do some follow-up videos about these specific stacks just to show you what's in there, but that's what was in this mystery box from my in-laws. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.